Marazzi. And there we can see more cars coming down the pit lane as we follow them with our camera. Motohiko Isozaki in the green car, the 105, winner of the race yesterday. Stationary, 3 minutes remaining until the start of the session. There is the 107 car, Stefano Marazzi. Just hear the sound of the engines idling for the moment, but they will go into full roar as we go back into the Ghostner MP Racing Garage. Thomas Ghostner, Corinna Ghostner, they will be taking part in the Shell qualifying part 2, which is going to be for the Shell drivers, as is this man, von Skelterma, who we saw on board earlier in this epic battle with Christian Kinch, which included those tense and heart-stopping moments, Dave. I think you spoke to Christian afterwards, and he said, you know, I was not going to lift my foot, but it was a little bit of a tense moment right there.
And what was wonderful is that both Christian and Fons on their respective social medias last night were just, they were both saying how much they enjoyed that battle. Clean, tidy, respectful racing from the two of them, and they both kind of congratulating each other for providing such a great entertainment on track for them as drivers, and providing it for us as viewers as well. They did a very, very good job, and that was really interesting to watch, and one of the great shots of yesterday. Ludovica is remaining down there, and I suspect remaining very damp.
Yes, I want to show you this beautiful image of the sensation and expectation of all the teams and the drivers before this qualifying session. We can see the teams and friends of all drivers talk about this session and the latest change for make the best lap for this morning. And obviously the question of this morning is who will catch the pole, the second pole position of this weekend.
Thank you, Ludovica. I just saw behind your camera there, Christian Kinch, and he would be well worth chatting to, and he would tell you just how he enjoyed his race yesterday. Having a great time also yesterday was Tommy Lindroth on the podium and gesticulating to the camera as he made his way to the podium quite deliberately to try and put me off my broadcasting stroke, which doesn't take a lot, and he did succeed in so doing. So well done to Tommy for his podium yesterday, taking P3. And of course, he has been coached this weekend by young Fabien Volvend, who is a very successful Ferrari Challenge and indeed racer in general. There we can see the car of Stefano Marazzi.
Absolutely, and we're about 10 seconds away from this qualifying session. You could see on the Tommy Lindroth car his famous sentiment, "I am here," which he uses to full effect on social media everywhere where he is, and on the back of his car. And I am here, we are here, and we are here to go qualifying for Copa Shell AM here at Spielberg Sunday. Going to set the grid for race 2. All the cars fighting out of pit lane, and I dare venture to say that we're probably going to get all the cars out very early, because only 20 minutes of qualifying session. That means you have very little time to idle, very little opportunity to stay in the pit lane and think about biding your time. You have to get out, you have to set a time early, because red flags have come, and especially in these conditions, an interruption is always possible. Now, we will have some standing water on the track again. I think it's let up just a little bit in terms of the rain, so that means conditions are probably going to improve a little bit over the course of the qualifying session. Expect the times to improve across those 20 minutes, except in the case of the rain intensifying once again. But all the drivers, they will first of all familiarize themselves with the level of adhesion, the grip levels, especially through the turns. And there you can see on the right-hand side, between turn 3 and 4, where you got, where the elevation change is some, that you've got a little bit of a creek running across the track. And there is another spot, and those are the particularly treacherous ones, because that's where the standing water is going to accumulate. Same thing at the bottom of this hill. And once again, you can see Motohiko Isozaki trying to find grip levels. And, yeah, it's not easy, even if he's not going full throttle yet. It is a very delicate racing machine, and they are trying to move it at the level of adhesion, and it can go wrong very quickly.
And what the likes of Motohiko and all the drivers will do is use that installation lap and use the installation laps, plural, just to see how far they can push. And here we can see, once again, Motohiko Isazaki testing the limits of the adhesion that are available to him at the moment. And you can see it doesn't take a lot to snap the back end of the car, particularly through this turn, turn number 1, the Niki Lauda turn here at the Spielberg Circuit, where Motohiko Isazaki now making the run up towards turn number 3. Go through the kink, which is turn number 2. It's not really a turn, it's just a full chat flat kink, but now he brakes hard for the uphill right-hander, which is turn number 3, which is where we see Motohiko Isazaki now. Oh, and again, you know, you can actually hear the wheels spinning up at the back as he put his foot through the loud pedal. And the back end letting go just a little bit. You start running downhill now through turn number 4, and it becomes now the Spielberg roller coaster, where you run downhill now through the next sequence of turns all the way to the completion of the lap. So Motohiko Isazaki for Cornes Motorshiba, who we're following now, standing water to the right-hand side. He avoids that, now turns left, holds on to the 4-day Challenge Evo. Very well indeed, runs the car to the outside, so it gives him the perfect entry into the next turn. Of course, the drivers all using different lines in wet weather conditions to those lines that they would use if the conditions were dry. Through the small chicane there is here at the Spielberg Circuit, and then over the crest you can see the spray coming off the back end of the 105 car. Now braking for this turn, and again back on the loud pedal before braking once again for the right-hander here, the final right-hander, which completes a lap of this circuit here at Spielberg. And Motohiko Isazaki then crosses the timing line with a 1:57.33, 1:50.733 for Motohiko Isazaki, which is immediately bettered by Kirk Beervold for Kessel Racing, who we had breakfast with this morning, with a 1:48.235. Here's Lisa Clark then, the Rosso Corse Pelin racer. And Lisa Clark, another track ticked off her bucket list of tracks to do. The USA racer who will be jetting back to the USA to compete in Road Atlanta next weekend in the Ferrari Challenge North America. So well done to Lisa Clark, a very well-traveled and very competent racer as well. And as you can see, the conditions for Lisa at the moment, well, she's enjoying them. She's perhaps not enjoying the traffic ahead, because Lisa was on better than anyone's sectors, Sector 1 and Sector 2, but she has the Paolo Scudieri car ahead of her now, which will compromise the final sector for Lisa Clark. It looked like it was going to be a very, very good lap from Lisa. Giuseppe Romelli has just gone quickest with a 1:47.161. Early times in this session, but it is a shortened session with just 14 3/4 minutes remaining as Lisa Clark crosses the timing line now. She does go third fastest, but I venture to say the time would have been in the 47s had the third and final sector not been compromised with traffic. And here we can see Motohiko Isazaki going through, and then it is the number 124 car of Kirk Beervold, who is already very, very quick. He was P1 for moments, then Giuseppe Romelli put in a time in the 1:47s, but Kirk Beervold is responding now as he heads towards the timing line. This also probably going to be in the 140, in the 146s, I would suggest. It's actually a 1:45.946, but Motohiko Isazaki has delivered a 1:45.727. So Motohiko Isazaki, who crossed the line just a bit before Kirk Beervold, has gone fastest, but Giuseppe Romelli is looking quicker as well. And basically the times are coming down now because the cars have done a few laps now, and therefore the standing water that was around the track has been pushed away a little bit, and that allows the drivers to improve their lap times fairly significantly, as Motohiko Isazaki is also improving. So we are seeing lots and lots of purple sectors now, and that means that the times are reducing, and there's only 13.5 minutes of the session remaining. It is a shortened session then for our Copa Shell drivers and Copa Shell AM drivers. The Copa Shell AM driver is the first of those to show. And it's Giuseppe Romelli from Motohiko Isozaki, then Kirk Beerwald ahead of Stefano Marazzi and Tommy Lindroth and Lisa Clark, and Martinus Richter, Josef Schumacher, Roland Hurtner. Then it's Pino Frascara, Christian Windisberger, Paolo Scudieri, Louis Perescoia. That's the way it looks at the moment. The 13 cars that you can see on the graphics on the left-hand side of your screen, as Motohiko once again is improving. Sector 1 was personal best. Sector 2 was better than anyone. If it's coloured blue, it means it's a personal best. If it's coloured purple, it means it's quicker than any other driver. However, I don't think his entry and exit of the final turn was quite where Motohiko hoped to put the car, and therefore this may end up not being an improvement for him. That's how we have it at the moment, Nico, with just 12.5 minutes remaining.
Indeed, Kirk Beerwald leapfrogs Motohiko Isozaki for the time being. As you say, lots and lots of improvements all across the timing screen. So with 12.5 minutes almost remaining, we still expect lots of changes. And Giuseppe Romelli hopes for no changes in terms of who's going to be P1 at the end of the session, because that's where he currently resides. He will have the disadvantage in the race, or whoever takes pole position, he will be starting behind the Shell driver, so that clear line of visibility in the spray is not going to be afforded to the Shell AM pole setter. Still, being P1 in class is better than any other position that you can achieve in this qualifying session. Martinus Richter, who had a good qualifying yesterday, very good qualifying, found himself dropping quite a few places in the race yesterday, throughout the race, and didn't have quite the result that he was hoping for. So he's going to hope for a better result in the race today, taking turn number 3 at the very top of that hill, and now he's rolling down this section in sector 2 towards turn number 4, and you can see how wet it is and how the wiper is going, even though there is no car right in front of him, which gives him some decent visibility in these conditions. And we will see as he comes to what's effectively the infield here, and that left-hand turner, which is very treacherous because that turn takes almost forever, and you're really pulled to the outside, and in these conditions you really want to avoid the curbs on the outside because they will be very, very slippery. Sector 2, personal best, colored blue, but as you can see, 1.8 seconds off the pace overall, not quite ready for a challenge.
Now, the 111 car is being shown the black flag with the orange disc, and that is for a mechanical issue with the car. And I was going to venture to say, whilst we were on board with Martinus Richter, it looked like the bonnet was actually loose. You can see it flapping underneath the wiper, and I suspect that's why Martinus Richter will be shown the meatball flag, as it's known in motor racing circles, to say that hasn't been affixed properly. Bring it back into the pit lane, get it sorted out. Giuseppe Romelli, meantime, nothing loose, including the back end of his car, because he's done a very good Sector 1 and Sector 2, and he was P2, and now he becomes P1. And he is only the second driver to put it into the 43s, Motohiko Isozaki being the other one of those. So 2 drivers in the 143s. Kirk Beerwald improving as well, Nico. His Sector 1 is better than anyone. So Kirk Beerwald, the Singaporean racer, who is finding improvements across every turn and every centimetre of really rather rain-sodden tarmac. And Sector 2 has also gone the same way. It's a relatively short lap here at Spielberg, but Kirk Beerwald then for Kessel Racing with a turn to do, and he will head towards the timing beam now and hopes that this will propel him from P3 to P1. And it does, with a 1:42.511. So the margin with which drivers are improving at the moment are big, big margins. He's just gone quicker by very nearly an entire second, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big leap that he took there, and that's going to be really tough for everybody else to challenge. But one of those who's doing that is Lisa Clark. First sector, very, very good. Almost on the same speed as Kirk Beerwald was, just 6/100ths of a second away from that time. And on the pit perch, everybody's watching the stream, is watching the live timing as well. making sure to know where your own drivers are and obviously also where the other drivers are, because as we've said so many times, it's a team game. Finding track position is something that the drivers who are focusing on what they're doing behind the wheel is not something that they can really do. That's where the team comes in and tells the drivers, ease up a little bit on that lap, because that will give you on the next one, will give you clear tarmac ahead of you. That's all good and fine until someone else decides to do something that you don't expect and is right in front of you at the most inopportune point in time. Stefano Marazzi, he had a very good first sector and he is challenging for P1, trying to find empty track space and trying to find the exact right line through those turns as he comes down from P turns 4 and 5. Downhill, and we will see after the end of the second sector where he positions his car and his time in terms of the pole time, a 1:09.685. It's not quite there.
No, down a little bit. When we were looking, the Pellin Racing crew on the pit wall then, and they, of course, were following the onboard for their driver, Lisa Clark, and looking at all the data, and, of course, they're in communication with their drivers at any one moment during the course of a lap so that they can make the advice when necessary. Now, Martinus Richter has come in then and the bonnet has been reaffixed. I feel sure it was, there you go, the bonnet there in that corner. That's where it was lifting, and I noticed that when we were on board with Martinus Richter. As Stefano Marazzi now goes P2. So did improve, perhaps not to the level that Stefano would have hoped, but nonetheless it's a very good qualifying effort, and a very good qualifying effort from Tommy Lindroth, who's just moved up 5 places now and finds himself P6 at the moment. Talking of sixes, it's 6.5 minutes remaining in this qualifying session for our Copa Shell AM drivers. It's being led now by Kirk Beervold, the only driver in the 142s. And the nearest driver to him is Giuseppe Romelli, who is within 5/10 of the Kirk Beervold time. Here's Paolo Scudieri. He looked very quick in qualifying yesterday, and he's done personal bests in Sector 1 and Sector 2. And we will see what Paolo Scudieri is able to deliver at the end of this lap. Then it's going to be an improvement. He's currently sitting P10 in the chart, as you can see from the graphics on the left-hand side of your screen. Good morning to you. Welcome to the Spielberg Circuit. If you are just joining us here in Austria, we're live with qualifying for Ferrari Challenge Copa Shell, and this is Paolo Scudieri then heading towards the timing line now, looking for an improvement, and it is not an improvement in terms of his position. He stays P10. It's Kirk Beervold from Giuseppe Romelli and Stefano Marazzi. And here is Tommy Lindroth, who I was saying just a few moments ago, Nico, he went up 4 or 5 places and he's improving still further. How do I know that? Well, it's because his Sector 1 and Sector 2 are blue, which means he's doing personal bests, best times that he's done thus far in this qualifying session. He was on the podium yesterday, and he rounds the final turn now, gives it 100% on the loud pedal and heads towards the timing beam. And Tommy Lindroth improves another couple of places. Is up to 5th fastest now.
Yeah, definitely. And Fabienne Wolvent in the pit lane will talk to him, will share all her knowledge and all the advice to Tommy. But Tommy is very much a veteran here in the series, and he knows how to drive his car, and he's going to try and improve further. Now that he has put that very important banker, he can push a little bit more. And there is Fabienne Wolvent talking to Tommy, watching all the available data on the phone, on the screens, talking to Tommy on the headphones. So cross-media, if there ever was one, Fabienne Wolvent. And there is Motohiko Isozaki, and he is, I think by the line he's taken, it's not a very quick one, but he's setting himself up 4 minutes remaining for having another go. Giuseppe Romelli, meanwhile, currently P2, is going forward with a purple first sector, trying to wrestle that pole position. Currently held by Kirk Beervold away, and conversations in the pit lane are still going on. And there is the very man we were talking about, Giuseppe Romelli, first sector purple, second sector we will see in about 10 seconds where that will be, where he will position himself in terms of the trajectory for the remainder of this lap. 1:09.685 is the current benchmark at that point in the lap, and Giuseppe Romelli crosses that line with a 1:10.422, so 7/10 down, not looking like an improvement, very likely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Kirk Beervold not being troubled at the moment. Giuseppe Romelli is another driver that has put it into the 42s, and only 2 drivers that have done that, him being one of them, the other one being Kirk Beervold. Still, every car bar one out there on track, according to our GPS data that we have in our studio here. Giuseppe Romelli then, I suspect, will go again with just 3 minutes remaining in the qualifying session. And that will probably equate to a couple of laps that they will have before the session comes to a close. Josef Schumacher just going through turn number 1. Josef, a good qualifying for the Eberlein Automotive concern. He's currently 6th fastest. But this is the man that is holding that P1 position at the moment. Of course, an extra point gained for pole position. And he is the guy that is also leading the Copa Shell AM points at the moment, Kirk Beervold, who was raced in North America, also Europe as well, and probably in previous Asia-Pacific seasons also, by dint of him being based in Singapore. Driving for Kessel Racing, and into the garages we go right now. The garage of Formula Racing, you can see Willem van der Vorm there, and also Eliseo Dono. Eliseo, of course, has been out and done his qualifying because Trofeo Pirelli qualifying has been and gone. Motohiko Isazaki is hoping to bank another quick time here. Sector 1, a personal best. Sector 2, better than anyone. Target time, 1:42.511. Crosses the timing line with a 1:42.365. Proving that you don't need to colour every sector purple to make it a new quickest time. And that's what he's delivered. He's taken Kirk Beervold away from that top spot. And he will be undoubtedly buoyed by the confidence of his victory yesterday. Motohiko Isazaki with a 1:42.365, Nico. It was a good lap from Motohiko.
Absolutely, and we're coming to the very sharp end of this qualifying session. Less than a minute and a half remaining. Pino Fascaro currently only down in P11, so he's got work to do, but very, very good first sector, as you can see. Purple the second, not quite, still personal best, but 2.5 seconds off the pace, so probably some traffic or something which interfered with his ability to challenge for pole position. Challenging for pole position, however, Stefano Marazzi, Kirk Beervold, both showing as purple in Sector 1. So that's going to be interesting. Pino Fascaro certainly on the way to a personal improvement, but not going to trouble the front rows, we feel, sure, as he is just a few seconds away from finishing this lap. He will have one more go at this, I'm sure, with 40 seconds remaining. So improvement P10, but not quite where the top drivers are, of 1:42.365 being the benchmark. And this driver is aiming for that benchmark. Kirk Beervold was residing in P1 for a long time, is currently in P2. What can he do for the rest of this lap and this session?
Well, he can do faster than anyone in Sector 1. He can do a personal best in Sector 2, which will be quick. Can he colour the final sector? And if he can, it might trouble the Motohiko Isazaki time. Here comes Kirk Beervold to break the timing beam now. 1:42.3 is the target, a 1:41.9 from Kirk Beervold. When he takes chunks out of previous best times, they tend to be quite big, man-sized portions because it's a full 4/10 better than Motohiko Isazaki, who I suspect will respond. But looking at his sector times at the moment, not sure. Lisa Clark, another one that is improving, currently P7. Sector 1 was very quick from Lisa Clark, the Rosso Corse, Stefano Pellin Racing Organization, and the American racing driver Lisa Clark then. She's got relatively clear track ahead of her. This lap will count for Lisa, even though the checkered flag has come down. It's a personal best in Sector 2. If she can colour Sector 3 purple, this would be brilliant for Lisa Clark. Here's Pino Fascaro, and then through the murk and the mire of the mist and rain that we can see here at Spielberg, here comes Lisa Clark then. Surely it's going to be an improvement on P7 in any event. Quite how big the jump will be, we're about to find out, because she's going to break the timing beam now as Lisa Clark heads towards the beam and goes P6. Kirk Beervold is improving. Look at this. Purple Sector 1, purple Sector 2. It's been a real battle between Kirk Beervold and Motohiko Isazaki and Giuseppe Romelli, and Tommy Lindroth up to P3 now in qualifying. And this will be about the final time that we will see in this session as Kirk Beervold, a 1:41.906. Can he improve on that? Well, the answer is no, he can't. But he did it, and he did it when it mattered, because he remains P1, Nico.
Absolutely. So he didn't need any more improvement, because what he had said, 141.906, was good enough for P2. There is Motohiko Izuzaki, who's alongside P2. Tommy Lindroth, as you said, came on his last-ditch attempt, made it a 142.489, and that is good enough for P3, which is exactly where he ended the race yesterday. Martinus Richter, down in P8, I feel he's one of those drivers maybe out of position, has been way higher up the order yesterday after qualifying. So he will have work to do. Stefano Marazzi, good qualifying from him, P4, Giuseppe Romelli, P5, Lisa Clark, very creditable in P6, and also Josef Schumacher, P7.
Yeah, good rain and wet weather conditions. Such a leveler sometimes, isn't it? And it really changes the order a little bit, Nico, and you can see the rain is still teeming down, unfortunately. But here we can see confirmation of the Copa Shell AM qualifying with Kirk Beervold. He's the quickest guy out there, 141.9. The only driver to put it into the 41s. Well done, Kirk. Motohiko Izuzaki, P2. Then Tommy Lindroth, P3. Ahead of Stefano Marazzi, Giuseppe Romelli, Lisa Clark, Josef Schumacher, Martinus Richter, Roland Hertner. Three drivers together there, P7, 8, 9. Pino Frascara, good qualifying from Pino. That's P10. With Paolo Scudieri, Louis Perescoia, and Christian Windisberger then closing out the top of the Copa Shell AM qualifying, with Copa Shell qualifying to come very, very shortly as well, because the qualifying is split into two, and we've had 20 minutes of Copa Shell AM qualifying, and we've got 20 minutes of Copa Shell qualifying to come in around about 6 or 7 minutes from now. I'm sorry to say, Nico, I love it when the weather conditions are a little bit challenging, because it does shake the order up and makes it very, very enjoyable. And Ludovica, who is enjoying it just as much as we are, she's down there in the Kessel Racing Garage, I believe.
Yes, Dave, I'm here with Marcello Puglisi, the coach of the poleman of this qualification session, and I want to discover more about this morning and how can you instruction your driver.
Well, I don't want to say too much, otherwise everybody knows it, but okay, no. It was really tough because it was raining quite a lot during the session. We were looking at the video yesterday because, of course, our first race has been in the rain. And we have been also working a little bit with the car, and actually at the end of the session we made really the difference. So Kirk did a really good job, and I hope we can keep pushing also for the race.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And that was qualifying for Copa Shell AM. We will be back in just a few minutes with Copa Shell qualifying. This is always tense. This is always close, so don't go anywhere. Maybe get a cappuccino or something like that, but be back in 5 minutes, because it's going to be fierce. We'll be back for that too. See you then. Well, welcome back to qualifying here on Sunday morning. It's Spielberg and it is Coppa Shell that we're going to witness. In about 20 seconds, we will be going qualifying. It is the last qualifying session of this weekend. In general, Coppa Shell is among the closest, if not the closest one. We have so many drivers who are able and eager to take pole position. And right at the front of the queue, you can just make out the 178. That is Axel Sarting and Willem van der Worm, the 182. Eric Chung, then Christian Kinch, Roger Groves, the 117. John Dillon, 151. Those are the first drivers filing out of pit lane, ready to engage in this battle, which will determine the starting order in Coppa Shell race later this afternoon. As you can see, it's still very much wet, clouds hanging low in the hills, mist clouds mixing to make this a very atmospheric and beautiful sight. It's not quite as beautiful or easy for the drivers, but it is a challenge which all the drivers embrace. They have no other choice really, but they also tell us that it is interesting, it makes everything more exciting. And one of those who made it extremely exciting yesterday is this man, Fons Geltema, the Shark, who was battling with Christian Kinch in an epic battle yesterday throughout the majority of the race. Tense, fair, determined racing between the two of them. They enjoyed their battle very much. And there is Christian Kinch in the foreground, who was involved in that. John Dillon, who had a little bit of an unfortunate moment, being the bowling ball to the bowling pin that was the Thomas Gostner car at one point, and that put both of them in the gravel. Both were able to recover, but John Dillon got a penalty. I have to say he will agree that it was deserved, not intentional of course, but he did make contact and send Thomas Gostner around, so that compromised both of their races. He will try to go for a better day and a better result today, as will everybody except for Ernst Kirchenmeier, who got P1 yesterday, so nowhere to go but up. He may decide that he also wants to have pole position and the fastest lap, but he got everything he wanted in the race. And 18 minutes remaining in this qualifying session, Dave. It's always very difficult in Coppa Shell to make any prediction of who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think you were very fair in what you said about John Dillon making that unfortunate contact yesterday with Thomas Gostner. John is nothing if not an absolutely gentlemanly racer, and certainly nothing malicious. It's just in these challenging conditions, perhaps we lose sight of how difficult it is to control the car. It's very easy, just a momentary error, and that can be enough. And let's see how we get on at the moment with 17.5 minutes remaining. As you say, Ernst Kirchmeier, well, came back into the Ferrari Challenge yesterday with aplomb, and Christian Kinch, as Nico has alluded to, having that fantastic battle with Fons Geltema, which they both enjoyed so much yesterday. And here's Willem van der Worm. He'll be hoping to qualify well. He's got Axel Sarting ahead of him. Axel Sarting, of course, still leading the Copa Shell points, and his championship charge is you know, really in his determination, of course. And yesterday, somebody that was perhaps a bit not where we expected to be was this driver, Christian Herdwieper, Nico, driving for the Emil Frey team. We know how quick Christian Herdwieper can be. Just this year, for whatever reason, I know when we opened the season in Valencia, he wasn't feeling particularly well. It just, I don't know, the season so far has not got off to the right start for Christian Herdwieper. We've got more to come from him. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, definitely, and he'll be the first to admit that thus far the season hasn't been what he was hoping for, but today is a new opportunity. It's wet once again, and he will have the chance to rectify everything that hasn't gone his way thus far. And he is trying to put in an early marker now, not necessarily on this lap, but on the next one. I'm sure he will go for it and try to get the maximum out. The first two sectors are 1:13.654. That's gonna probably give us the first reasonable benchmark in the early stages of this qualifying session, as everybody's still finding their footing and finding grip levels in the mist and the spray. And the visibility that's being challenged by the spray kicked up from the cars in front of him. He takes the final turn.
One of the additional advantages of taking P1 in Copa Shell, Nico, will be, the chances are that they will be starting from the very front of the pack, and therefore they're not going to be impacted by the visibility constraints that may be in the race in terms of other cars ahead and the spray that comes off. If ever there was an incentive to put the car P1, visibility is one of those incentives, particularly when the conditions are as challenging as they are right now. And Christian Herdwieper has put the car P1 for the moment. We're looking at Corinna Gosner. The graphics are gesticulating with regards to Thomas Gosner, who is just ahead of Corinna on the track. And Thomas Gosner, then here we can see him in full effect, then in the 161 car. One member of the four-strong Gosner family in the Ferrari Challenge with Thomas Gosner, and then both Corinna and Manuela Gosner racing in Ferrari Challenge Copa Shell, and of course son David Gosner drives in Trofeo Pirelli in the Ferrari Challenge. They all absolutely love their racing, and it's a fascinating family story, Nico, because it was Thomas Gosner that was racing first of all, and then Manuela and Corinna fancied to go at it as well, and all of a sudden the bill he got for racing cars became 4 times greater than he imagined, I think. And I should mention Thomas, not only competitive in Ferrari Challenge, but also competitive in glider competitions as well. He's a hugely talented man, as is Axel Sardingen, who now will go from P7 to P1, Nico, with a 1:43.493, taking some 3.5 tenths, a bit more actually, 3.8 tenths out of the previous best time, which was from Roger Grols. And as we continue the Gosner story, there is Manuela.
Indeed. Another part of the Gosner family. We already saw David Gosner earlier in Trofeo Pirelli, rounding out the family portrait of Gosners in the Ferrari Challenge. There is the Willem van der Worm car, the 182 with the Dayglow yellow and blue. Very nice livery. As you said, Axel Sardingen has put it on provisional pole, 1:43.493, but we see improvements all across the board. And Ingvar Madsen, who had a forgettable race yesterday, didn't quite get near the podium, where we always love to see him because he's wobbling. And there is Corinna Gosner beached in the pit in the gravel, and I fear that will bring out a red flag, because in these conditions no improvement from anybody is possible. Let's see how it happened.
Painted lines, Nico, painted.
Yeah, and that is really, really difficult, and we saw it and discussed it earlier. While you are on the curbs in these conditions, they are so slippery, and we saw a good example of that. Indeed, red flag is out, and with 12 minutes 55 seconds remaining, it brings everything to a halt. Everybody coming back in, except for Manuela Gosner, who was already in pit lane.
So that car is going to have to be recovered, and those that were out there, it impacts, of course, their strategy for qualifying, because all of a sudden the session has been suspended. Let's go into the pit lane, into the beating heart of the action, if you will, with Ludovica now.
Yes, Dave, I want to talk about Fons Skeltema, that in this moment is in the top of the position in qualifying session. In this morning I told with David Simonelli, that is the coach of the Shark of Ferrari Challenge, and he said me that yesterday in race 1 Fons had a very good times for the fight with the leaders, but he had a little confidence in this condition. So in this morning he probably tried to push to get a better lap and to get a race compared to yesterday in a better way.
Thank you, Ludovico. David Fuminelli, of course, the coach to Fons Skeltema, who Ludo was talking about there. Fons Skeltema still to put in a time that he would consider representative. Now, there is Daniele Diamato. Daniele is driver coach to Axel Sardingen, who, of course, is P1 at the moment, the Luex Sportivo Herta racing driver. Daniele Diamato, another hugely successful Ferrari Challenge driver, and there is his driver, Axel Sardingen, right at the head of the queue, ready to go out again as soon as the session recommences. But it's not going to be for a minute or two, because we saw that the Corinna Gosner car had not yet been recovered. The recovery team here at the Spielberg Circuit will be attending to that stricken car I rather fear that that will be the end of the qualifying for Corinna Gosner. Tommy Lindroth passing on advice to Ingvar Madsen. Tommy, of course, he's in a good position to pass on advice, having qualified so well in his session.
But knowing Tommy, that I would really investigate the advice he's giving, because he can be very much a jester. And be careful what he tells you. He might mean it. He certainly knows what he's talking about, but also...
He's a great fun character, isn't he? He's just awesome. This is the Eric Chung car. Eric Chung then, and this is the Fons Skeltermar car that Ludo was talking about. And Fons coach David Fuminelli. Can we see David on that shot? Yes, yes, just above the wing that you saw just a moment ago. And here is the car of Roger Grols, the Race Art Kroijmans driver. Roger Grols, who is currently, where are we, P5 in this session. And there, Ingvar Madsen about to pull away and join the queue of cars ready to go back out again for the remaining 12 minutes and 55 seconds. The session is going to restart in exactly 2.5 minutes from now. Enjoy these images. Nice images of some of the action that we've seen thus far, with action aplenty still to come. We are just 30 seconds away from getting the green light at the end of the pit lane, and the cars will file back out again. Now, as I was mentioning, Axel Sartingen is right at the head of the queue, and his driver coach is Daniele Diamato, who's with Ludo right now.
Daniele, I want to discover more about the pole position of Alex Sartingen. What do you advise and gave like instruction for this qualifying session?
Yes, it will be super important to warm immediately the tires, because now the conditions are improving, and lap by lap they are improving a lot. And at the moment that they are starting now, and still 30 minutes to until the session. So lap by lap they will improve, and at the last lap they will do the best lap time. So we have to push until the end of the session, and this is my suggestion at the end.
And the last question, Axel, after the race 2 of yesterday, in this morning, was more confident?
Yeah, yesterday was super conservative, and he was thinking about the championship. But today is important to start P1 and to be in front in a wet race that maybe will be heavy rain, and so super important. 90% for me is the qualifying about the race.
Thank you so much.
So Daniele then confirming what I thought yesterday, that Axel Sartingen was very much driving with his head and thinking about the championship, the long term, the points haul, and that's exactly what Axel Sartingen did. And Daniele there making a point that, of course, for the race today, in his opinion, 90% of that race is in qualifying today. And he's saying that every driver is probably going to run right till the end of the session. That's when we're going to see the meaningful times, right at the end of the session. So We are 11.5 minutes away from that. So Axel Sardingen currently leading from Ingvar Madsen, Christian Herdvipper. We've already got a yellow flag out there somewhere on the track. Now that can be, we've got a red flag almost immediately once again. So the session has been suspended before even one lap is completed, following the earlier suspension. So someone has gone off somewhere. Can we see on our GPS track map here where that is and who it is? It looks like, is that, I can't quite see. Who is that?
It might actually be Axel Sardingen, and I hope not to jinx anything, but he's showing as having not completed Sector 2. And I mean, cold tires after the resumption of the session, as well as standing water which has accumulated. So we will see where that is. I mean, turn number 3 would be at the very top of the climb, and we have seen no visual indication of any car being stationary. Certainly, talking about the fastest times coming towards the end of the session, with that intermission and the additional intermission, that means it's growing more and more likely that it's going to be a last-ditch effort. Now, we can see that...
Sardingen is moving now, according to the GPS.
Yeah.
So whether he just, whether he lost it and then managed to get it going again, but in any event, what we have to do, and what race control have to do, and let me just give you a little bit of an explanation, because Claudio Garavini and his team that work in the race control, they have to think constantly about driver safety, of course, and therefore, if you get a car that is stuck on a certain part of the track, then they really have no alternative, particularly in conditions like this, which are really, really challenging to just, they have to bin the session, to have to start it all over again. Now, we are going to go back to racing, not racing, we're going to go back to qualifying in about 40 seconds from now. So I think probably, and we have seen no evidence of it, but I think probably what happened was Axel ran wide, perhaps on the colder tyres, just got himself caught into the gravel, and that immediately almost propelled the red flag, didn't it? And thankfully, it's not going to last for very long before we go back to our qualifying session. And who is it right at the head of the queue to come out now? I believe it's Ernst Kirchmayr.
I believe so too. And you know, for race control, it's a very difficult call to make, because as long as there is a yellow flag, nobody can improve. So you kind of don't want to leave the session running too long, because it will take away from the time that the drivers have.
There is Axel Sardingen, so whatever caused the, and you know, it is only our assumption that it was Axel that caused that red flag. The car is perfectly okay, and he's in the queue of cars. Forgive me for interrupting you.
Indeed, and there we can see everybody's filing out. There is Axel Sardingen coming through center shot, and there is Christian Herdvipper, who leads the queue out from pit lane. So 11 minutes remaining. That means you have to have at least 1 or 2 laps to get your tires up to speed, rather 2 than 1. With all the traffic and all the restrictions on visibility, it's gonna be a tense battle over those 10 minutes plus 1 lap. And there you can see already one car going very slow, probably just to let the other cars by and find track space.
That was Roger Grohl's wise head, perhaps there, just letting all the cars go past. It's not only track space, it's also visibility, isn't it? So it's going to be something of a dash for cash in terms of who's going to take that P1 position, I would suggest, towards the end of the session. Here's Eric Chung then. Eric Chung is currently way down the order. Expect improvements from Eric Chung to come. Axel Sardingen is P1, Ingvar Madsen P2, Christian Herdvipper is P3, with Alexander Nussbaumer P4 at the moment. Every driver is out, with the exception of Thomas and Corinna Gosner. Well, Thomas Gosner now makes his way out of the pit lane. Corinna Gosner, the only one that hasn't done so yet. And sure enough, there is the Corinna Gosner car. Of course, Corinna was out and in the gravel earlier on, so whether the MP Racing team just taking a look at that car before sending Corinna back out again, I'm sure that is the case. Sure enough, as if they were listening to my every word, Corinna Gosner is sent out of the pit lane. So here is the 198 car then, that is driven, of course, by Eric Chung. And we've seen Ingvar Madsen and Eric Chung's car almost identical out there, both in those resplendent red colours of their 488 Challenge Evos, as indeed is this man, Ernst Kirchmayr, who was on the top step of the podium yesterday and will be buoyed by the confidence that he always has, being engineered by the Baron Motorsport team. Ernst Kirchmayr then Currently 12th fastest in this qualifying session. It means nothing yet. So round turn 3 he goes. Accelerates away, and he's got Christian Kinch right behind him in the green and white livery on his 488 Challenge Evo. It's Axel Sardigan, Ingvar Madsen, P1 and P2, but we still have 8 3/4 minutes of this qualifying session as Ernst Kirchmayr is into turn number 4 right now. One driver that was involved in drama yesterday was John Dillon, and Ludo has more, I believe.
Yes, Dave, a little fun fact, because I've told with one of the John Dillon's mechanic here in pit, and he said that Dillon, that in this moment is in the 6th position, is very happy to race in this condition because he's an Englishman, so he loves the rain and to push his car to the limits under this weather.
Can I just say, Ludovica, you and everybody else that goes on about the English weather, may I say, in all my trips to Europe this year, English weather has been vastly superior to that I've experienced anywhere else. Poke it, you lot.
Yeah, well, I would say the same thing, but fair enough. Anyway, John Dillon certainly doesn't mind the wet, apparently. Had a bit of an unfortunate moment yesterday, but no unfortunate moments for Ernst Kirchmayr, and he put it into P1 for a brief moment before Christian Herdwipper snatched the #1 provisional ratiform pole board away. He takes P1 with a 1:43.366, but lots of improvements coming, and one man to do more improving, we think, is Axel Sardigan, currently P3, but Thomas Gostner, one of those on a trajectory to get up from his current position, currently P10, as you can tell from the timing. He is challenging for that P1 position. First sector was very good, second sector was also very good, so one of those who are trying to advance themselves and get as high up the order as we can. Just under 7 minutes remaining in this qualifying session. Thomas Gostner taking it through the final 2 turns, just 1 turn to go. 1:43.366, the current benchmark, and Thomas Gostner is heading for the line. He lets the clock stop with a 1:43.401. That's 35 1/1000ths off the pace, but it is P2 for the time being.
So it's Christian Herdwipper, the very car that we're looking at right now, that is the fastest, and Christian Herdwipper is improving still further. The Emil Frey driver then with purple sectors across Sector 1 and Sector 2. Is this going to be a still further improvement from Christian Herdwipper? He hugs the curbs, trying to get the perfect entry into the penultimate turn. Now he's into the final turn, keeping it between the white lines, avoiding the paint, which is very, very slippery. Here comes Christian Herdwipper, whose P1 has been taken away by Ernst Kirchmayr, but he's taken back again by Christian Herdwipper, who bests Ernst Kirchmayr's time. So it's a 1:42.196, a full 4/10ths quicker than Ernst Kirchmayr, who was the other driver to put it into the 42s, literally as Christian Herdwipper was jumping across the timing line. And Axel Sardigan has now gone 3rd fastest to make it a 3-way sweep into the 42s, with Christian Herdwipper, Ernst Kirchmayr and Axel Sardigan there, followed by Alexander Nussbaumer, John Dillon. Then it is Thomas Gostner, Christian Kinch, Roger Grols. And Thomas Gostner, the car that we're looking at the moment, he's improving personally because it's personal best in Sector 1 and Sector 2. This may move him ahead of John Dillon, who's currently P5. We will see when Thomas comes to the end of this lap. Willem van der Voort has just improved a couple of places and moved up to P7. So Thomas Gostner then rounding the final turn right now in the 161 car. Gives it 100% on the gas pedal and heads towards the timing line now. Target 1:42.196. He's not going to trouble that. But he gets within 3/10ths of troubling it because he goes 2nd fastest. He pulled it all together in the final sector, and Axel Sardigan is another driver that's improving too. Daniele Diamato, his driver coach, said all the drivers are going to improve come the end of the session. That's when it's going to come good for them. With 4.5 minutes remaining, Sardigan then quicker than anyone through Sector 1. Personal best through Sector 2. He is currently 4th fastest. That would mean a row 2 start if it all stayed the same. And Ernst Kirchmayr is the first driver to put it into the 41s. And he goes 1:41.920. So is Sardigan now going to trouble that time, as von Skeltermar is also going really, really quick. So here comes Axel Sartingen for the Hertha Racing Organisation. Across the timing line he goes now. And for Axel Sartingen, it is a non-improvement. He stays where he was. Von Skeltermayer is improving, but Ernst Kirchmayr is the quickest of everyone out there at the moment. We're on board with Von Skeltermayer.
Yeah, and we watch him as he goes through that turn. Second sector wasn't great. It was still a personal best, but not where he wanted it, and not where the first sector was. So he will try and get up from his P13, and then he will edge closer to the level of Vetition, what he dares to risk. Probably on the final attempt, he will go all out and try to get the absolute maximum. And I do think we will probably see pole time with the clock having hit quadruple zeros. Unless something dramatically happens. So he's already up into P3 very quickly down to Ludovica, because we're in the final stages here and times are tumbling down. Ludovica.
Yes, I'm here in the box of Emil Frey, and I want to remark and remember you that this is the first year of Emil Frey in Ferrari Challenge. All the teams good, a very perfect work with their pilots, their drivers, sorry, in this weekend and in this season.
Thank you very much, Ludovica. Of course, driving and engineering the Christian Herd-Viper car. Welcome to Emil Frey to the Ferrari Challenge. And well done to Christian Herd-Viper, who crosses the timing line. He's remaining P2. Christian Kinch, very good showing P3. Von Skeltermayer is P4. The king of the tree at the moment is Ernst Kirchmayr. It's only Ernst Kirchmayr and Christian Herd-Viper that are into the 41s. Can Von Skeltermayer do something about that, Nico, in the remaining 2¼ minutes?
He's very much trying. First sector was purple, quicker than anybody. We will see in just a few moments where he is. Second sector, again, like in the previous lap, wasn't kind to him. Lost a full second in that sector. He will have enough time to go one more time after this one. Christian Herd-Viper again with a very good first sector. I think once again with the rain, it's easier to be quick on the straights because you need less grip there, obviously, because you're just going straight. In the twisty bits toward the end of the track, that is really where additional rain and additional moisture will compromise things.
You just saw then, forgive me, Nico, we saw that live on board as Von Skeltermayer just drifted a little bit onto the paint, and you could just see how the car really snapped, and you have to have the ability to really control that, and Von Skeltermayer did so. We've got Ernst Kirchmayr, P1, Christian Herd-Viper, P2, Axel Sartingen, P3. Drivers that are perhaps out of position at the moment include Von Skeltermayer, Willem van der Vorm, P5, and into the Baron Motorsport garage, we can see Franz there, who is the engineer for Ernst Kirchmayr, and that is in his team kind of number 2 to Philippe Baron, if you will. And of course, at the moment, their driver is P1. And this is how busy it's getting now as Christian Herd-Viper on an improvement through Sector 1 and Sector 2, whether Sector 3 was compromised by the cars ahead of him. This is Thomas Goester, he's P6. We are counting down because we have merely 40 seconds of this session remaining. Thomas Goester on an improvement trajectory. Can he do it through Sector 2 as well? And it's going to be those that cross the line last that will probably vault to the top of the timings, as indeed Roger Grols does right now, and Alexander Nussbaumer, both with improvements. The track is beginning to come to them right at the end of this session. Is anyone going to trouble the time of Ernst Kirchmayr? Thomas Goester could do it, Nico.
Indeed, and Ernst Kirchmayr also, Christian Herd-Viper, Axel Sartingen, and all of those are showing purple on our timing screen. I think this is really everybody laying it out, doing everything they dare do. Thomas Goester is going to be the first one to do it. He will see the checkered flag, and this is his last attempt. A 1:41.579, a 1:41.361. Thomas Goester, P1.
For the moment, because other drivers are on improvements as well. A valiant effort by Thomas Goester. I didn't quite see whether he crossed the timing line before it went to zeros. Can he do another lap? No, he can't. So all of Thomas Goester's work is done. Who now is going to take Thomas Goester's top spot, if any driver is going to take Thomas Goester's top spot? We need to see the cars on the track. Ernst Kirchmayr, Willem van der Vorm. Here comes Alexander Nussbaumer. He's currently P5. Purple Sector 1, blue Sector 2. And of course, here comes Alexander Nussbaumer. Is he going to be able to do it? Ernst Kirchmayr, 141.112. Here's Alexander Nussbaumer for Gomes Scuderia GT. So, as Ernst Kirchmayr vaults Thomas Gostner, is Alexander Nussbaumer going to do so? Axel Sardigan has improved to P3, Alexander Nussbaumer P2, and Willem van der Worm, I don't think Willem van der Worm's Sector 1 was not where he needed it to be. He'll have to make up so much time in Sector 3. I don't think Willem van der Worm is going to move from his P5 place. For the Scuderia Monte Carlo organisation, Willem van der Worm rounds the final turn and heads towards the timing line. I suspect he will stay. I beg your pardon. He found so much in Sector 2 and Sector 3. He goes P2. Brilliant effort from Willem van der Worm.
Absolutely. Purple sector in the final sector, and it wasn't quite enough to challenge Ernst Kirchmayr, but he did put it all the way up into P2. Sadly, we didn't see the pole time from Ernst Kirchmayr, but obviously so much going on at the same time. You really didn't know where to head and what to look at. And I mean, wow. That was intense, as you predicted, as we felt it might be. Everything came to a head very, very late with the time having expired. Qualifying has delivered, and Christian Kinch looks a little bit dejected, to be honest. Finishing P8, he was very up the order, and you know, in these conditions, it's always traffic and conditions. You can be caught out in certain moments.
I'm not going to say it's a lottery because it isn't.
No.
But certainly the chips are stacked against you because you have so many external factors that are playing into your qualifying performance. Ernst Kirchmayr, P1 then, with a 141.112. Willem van der Worm, P2. Alexander Nussbaumer, P3. Then it's Thomas Gostner. Axel Sardigan is out of position, Nico. He's P5. Roger Grols, arguably out of position as well. Christian Herdwipper, then Christian Kinch. We could see how dejected Christian looked as he walked away from the car. Then it's Eric Chung, and Fons Skelterma will be disappointed with that qualifying as well. He's down there in P10. Ahead of Manuela Gostner, John Dillon, Ingvar Madsen, and Corinna Gostner. Let's hear from Ludovica now.
Yes, I'm here with Nicolò, Ernst coach. Nicolò, what about this qualification in this condition for Ernst? Yesterday he made a good race, so he improved today.
Yes, the qualifying was not easy because of the red flag. The raining condition was changing during the session. Ernst did a very good job increasing the rhythm step by step, and in the last lap he could get the pole position, just 1/10 to the second place. So that's a good starting position because we have clean track in front of us, so he can do the pace, and finger crossed for the race.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Niccolò Schiro, then driver coach to Ernst Kirchmayr, who has, well, he's coached him well because Ernst, as he quite rightly says, he's going to have not only clear track ahead of him, he's going to have no visibility issues, assuming the rain maintains its intensity between now and race time a little bit later this afternoon. Confirmation of the result then, as Ernst Kirchmayr finished ahead of Willem van der Worm by just nearly 2/10. Then it was Alexander Nussbaumer, Thomas Gostner, Axel Sardigan, Roger Grols, Christian Herdwipper, Christian Kinch, Eric Chung, Fons Skelterma, Manuela Gostner, John Dillon, Ingvar Madsen, and Corinna Gostner. That's the way it looked. So we had 2 interruptions. And I remind you, as Axel Sardigan walks away, he doesn't look too disappointed. He's got some overtaking to do. Axel, Trofeo Pirelli race comes at 2 o'clock, and there you can see driver, coach, and driver in conversation, completing and concluding our qualifying session. From Nico and from myself, thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.